All right, so let's take a look at your code here. I already got it started running here, and I entered in the variables here. So we're going to start with a population of 500, a growth rate of 2, growth period of 6. So you should, after this, go from 500 to 1,000. So in hour 6, 1,000. Hour 12, you should go to 2,000. Hour 18, you should go to 4,000. And in hour 24, you're doubling from 4,000 to 8,000. So you should get 8,000. And 8,000 by the time this thing is done. So when we hit enter, the population is 0. So we got to figure out why this is 0, what's going on here. So let's take a look. I had to add packaged loops to get Java, the util to work, because that wasn't on there, and then I added an A to prompt4, because I already had a prompt4 that I had downloaded, and it was giving me prompt4 with parentheses 1, and it was giving me an issue. So I added that just so you see that. Then we come down through here. You got your scanner. Good. Start pop, so the starting population you're initializing to 0 as an int. An integer period equals 0, that's good. Int time equals 0, that's good. Int rate equals 0, that's good. So you got that, and you have int x, and I'm going to presume you're going to use int x down here in there for your loop. Okay, got it. So int final population equals 0. So we have a final population of 0 to start, so you're going to end up having a higher final population somewhere down here. Good. So these lines of code here look like you're getting the user to input a starting population, rate of growth, growth period, and time period. And so these are all going to the variables are start pop, rate, period, and time. Got it. Makes sense. And now you have another one that you're calling int run, and you're saying it's going to be time, which is this divided by period. So in our case, run would be 24 divided by 6, which is 4. Okay. I think I see where you're going with this. All right. So for x equals 1, x less than run, 4. So what you're going to do is that for every time period, you're going to multiply the population by 2. So this makes sense, okay? Problem in this line. I already see a problem. Let's see if you can take a look, and you should be able to find this problem. I'm not going to tell you what it is. See if you see a problem with this. Okay, so here you're doing a start pop equals final pop. So starting population is what you're having now is 0. And a final population that you've got, so you're saying start pop is 0, final pop, sorry, is 0. So you're setting start pop equal to 0. That's the same thing because you're pointing to final pop and you're just saying start pop equals 0. Makes sense, okay? So, but I'm not sure where you're going with this. Final pop, so now you're saying final pop, which was 0, equals start pop, which you just set to 0, times rate. So final pop equals 0 times rate. So final pop equals 0. Okay, let's see what happens when we go through the loop. We have a problem here already, and then you have to find that. But so this iteration, so now we've gone through, and now x equals 2. Start pop equals final pop. We set final pop to 0 here. So final pop is 0, start pop 0 again. Start pop is 0 times rate, still 0. So we'll come back up here. Int run is 3. So we're doing this 4 times. It's always going to equal 0. Final pop is always going to equal 0. And as soon as it's done with the loop, it comes down here and says the final population is 0. Okay, so that's why you're getting final population is 0. So what do you have to do to get a final population of 8,000? Now, it looks like from this line of code, you were trying to get the number of times that you would have a doubling, how many times you would get a doubling population. So you would double the population 4 times is what I'm seeing is happening here. And so this is smart. I can see where you're going with this. But you don't end up doing that here. So how would you do that? How would you end up setting the start population, and you're running through this 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're multiplying starting pop 2 times 2, every time that it goes through this loop, you're going to get the correct answer. So how are you going to do that? Here, you're setting start pop to final pop. Looks like to me you probably don't need this. This right here doesn't make any sense. I don't see why you need this. So this doesn't look right, and then this right here, you have to reset this. So every time you're going through the loop, you need to set start pop equal to itself. So if it was 500 to start out with, you let it equal to itself, and then you're multiplying it by whatever your rate with. So that if you do that, if you're looking, is it the rate you're doing here? Yeah, if you're doing it by the rate, every time you go through the thing, you're doubling it. So really, there's a couple errors right here. Everything looks fine. This is a good idea. No, this right here, I like this, how you did this. I haven't seen this one yet. It's a good idea, and I think I see where you're going with it. So now you got to figure out, and I can't tell you this, you got a couple errors here, and I've already told you that this, you're going to have to fix this right here, and I told you there was an error in here that you got to find. Once you find the error on this line, and it's a pretty glaring error, it kind of destroys the whole purpose of your for loop. I mean, your for loop is correct. It runs fine, but there's one thing wrong with it. And it's actually, it's not a syntax error, it's a logic error that you got here. So it's not giving you a squiggly line. So ask yourself, what is that error? And then even better is, why is that error causing my issues? Here, we've already talked about, you're setting this to 0, and then you're multiplying it by something, it's going to be 0, and then you just keep on resetting it to 0. So, remember, how when you, so let me leave it to you this. You've learned about counters. Ask yourself this, what does this do? This x plus plus basically means you add 1 to x. It's also the same as saying x equals x plus 1. So every time that you go through the loop, you're adding 1 to x. Is there some way that you could do something similar to this to your starting population, and then instead of saying, okay, there are multiple operators here. You know that you could say x equals x times 1, x equals x divided by 1, even though those don't really help you out a lot. But you could substitute other numbers than 1 in there, and what would happen? So think about that. Think about how I've done it. The code looks good, and I like the way you've got this. This makes sense. I see where you're going with it, and see if you can figure it out. And if you can't, let me know, okay? And then I'll give you a hand with it.